Okay. Good. Good evening. Today is Wednesday, January 15th, 2025 at 6 p.m. We're in the Brecksville-Broadview Heights Education Center, 6638 Mill Road, Brecksville, Ohio. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Public participation is governed by Board Policy 019.1, public participation at board meetings. This meeting will be live streamed via YouTube and will also be recorded for later viewing. Please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel where all recordings are posted. Item 1B, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 1C, roll call.
Mrs. Gaelick?
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Ms. O'Mara?
Yeah.
Mr. Dosen?
Yes. Moving on to item 2, President's announcements. Item A, I have no announcements. Item B, notice of consent agenda. So just some precursor comments. So we've made a few adjustments to the agenda, specifically the consent agenda, to kind of tighten it up to be in accordance with the best legal guidance we've gotten. So what we'll find later in the meeting is we only have one consent agenda. It is a collapse of both what used to be a separate superintendent's and then a treasurer's consent agenda. Those have just been collapsed into one consent agenda. And what we can do is, if there are any items on the consent agenda that board members want to remove, we can remove them and then we can vote on them separately or pull them separately. So at this point, and what you'll notice also, the consent agenda items these are regular board business items. They show up almost every month or every year annually. So those are what qualify for consent agenda. So does any board member have any questions, or is there anything on the consent agenda that we would like to pull?
And as it's indicated there is no vote to pull it. So a board member can pull an item at their own discretion, just so you know.
Question of clarification.
Sure.
As we move forward with this new procedure, so Mr. Dosen, will you be asking this at every meeting during your
Opening
statement? Okay.
Yes. So at each meeting, with board members, as you review the agenda, if you even last minute, if you see something that you have some concerns about, we can pull it on the front end. And then, as Craig said, there's no vote on it, and then we can deal with it later in the meeting.
For example, if you have a family member or somebody on one of the lists to be hired, is a common reason that we pull something. So, but we'll keep an eye out for all of that.
And if you do know ahead of time, if your review of it over the weekend, we can also pull it prior to and just take it off the consent agenda. But at the last minute, day of, this is how we would handle it.
So this will be an ongoing staple of our meeting, the notice of consent agenda.
And also, just to clarify, when we get to the consent agenda, we can still have discussion about individual items. That's totally fine. It's just if we want to pull items individually off to vote on them.
Yes. Okay, I think everyone's good. So we'll move on to item 3, board areas of responsibility, legislative OSBA liaison. Ellen.
I just have a bit of a report, because last week Governor DeWine signed several education related pieces of legislation. One of them is Senate Bill 54, which makes an appropriation of $250,000 to promote suicide prevention in schools. Another is going to require schools and higher education institutions to include the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline telephone number on student ID cards, student planners, and electronic portals. All the laws I'm talking about are going to take effect on April 8th. Another change relates to the expulsion of a student for actions that endanger the health and safety of other students or school employees. There's some changes to the substance of that law. And interestingly, that particular law added some other interesting things tagged into it, such as new protocols for the way schools store seizure medications, and it also included an increase in funding for school choice program administration to the tune of $4,140,000 for fiscal year 2025. So I'm not quite sure why that got tagged into that bill. Another piece of legislation that the governor signed last week, and that becomes effective in April, kind of was getting a decent amount of press. It's called the Parents' Bill of Rights. And it requires public schools to establish a policy notifying parents beforehand if material with sexuality content is going to be presented to students. No such material is to be provided to students in grades kindergarten through third, and for other grades, the consent must be age appropriate and developmentally appropriate. And then there is a provision which requires schools to promptly notify a student's parent of any substantial change in the student services, including counseling services, and prohibits school district personnel from directly or indirectly encouraging a student to withhold from a parent information concerning the student's mental, emotional, or physical health, or a change in related services or monitoring, which many school districts or many people are construing requires that parents be notified if a student expresses something relating to sexuality to somebody in the school district. And then lastly, the school districts are now required to have a policy allowing releases for students who wish to attend religious instruction away from school during the school day. Again, these laws all become effective in April, and we'll be updating our policies accordingly.
Be one of the reasons we haven't received our Neola policy update for January yet. All these changes, just yesterday in our administrative meeting, A-team meeting, I kind of gave the Cliff Notes details to much of the legislation Ellen spoke about. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, some policy adjustments, but also in just the way that we operate day to day. What will not change is it will continue to take care of students and take care of their needs. And as always, in Brexville Broadview Heights, our parents are partners in education, and we'll continue to treat them that way and continue to make sure they're involved in the process. However, it does make it a little bit more difficult when things are legislated, because the way they are written isn't always ideal for the way that we need to carry out business on a day-to-day basis. So you will see some policy things popping here from time to time. It'll be interesting to see how many of these will be challenged in the next 90 days, because many of them do take effect in April. There's a few that take effect in March because they were signed before that lame duck session. So it will be interesting. In this coming week's board update, I'll share with you the presentation I did for the administrative team. It doesn't go into extreme detail. It gives you the high level of each one of them, but then there's links in there to the information from 3 different sources that give you the details if you really want to read into the details. So stay tuned. Lots to come.
Great, thanks. Moving on to Cuyahoga Valley Career Center. Eva?
Hey, we had our meeting last Thursday at 6:30, and the first part of the meeting at 6:30 was to do an organizational meeting, just as we had last week here, and then we segued into the part of the meeting where we each were either volunteering or assigned to various committees, and very welcoming group of people, and I really appreciated that. In terms of information, though, we have student and parent information night on Thursday, January the 16th, which is tomorrow, from 7 to 8:30. And it highlights more of the specialized career and college preparation opportunities available through the nearly 30 career technical programs offered at CVCC. And in addition to that, we had a sheet. They do a very nice job with their collateral in terms of highlighting students, et cetera. And this particular student was Sam Lombardo. And Sam Lombardo is a senior at Brecksville Broadview Heights High School, and he's enrolled in the Programming and Software Development Program at CVCC, taught by Jamie Little. And so after that, Jamie Little went ahead and showed a slide program about the building skills for the future and all of the things that they do in that program, which are phenomenal. Just phenomenal. And the fact that our Brecksville Broadview Heights student won the national award for this particular area. And so they will be having the Career Technical Week. Jamie Little, the instructor, is a two-time winner of the Greater Cleveland Partnership IT Instructors Award. And that's quite an achievement as well. They have Career Technical Week coming up February 3rd through the 7th. Monday, there'll be celebrations with balloons throughout the building. There'll be a second quarter 100% club recognition, that's attendance. And CBCC t-shirts for all seniors. Tuesday, bring your parents to school 9 to 10. Wednesday and Thursday, there'll be 10th grade visits with the parents, highlighting all of the offerings that CVCC has. And then Friday, show your team spirit, wear your favorite team jersey and shirt. And that's it.
Thanks.
Great, thank you. Moving on to curriculum, Tish.
I don't have any updates because I believe Dr. Martin will be talking about the curriculum frameworks here in a few minutes. So I will let the star of the show do what he does.
Yes, we will tee that up later in the meeting. Finance, myself and Tish, no updates on finance as of right now. Transportation, myself, all is quiet, which is good. Board policy, Lisa and Ellen.
No updates, but we probably will have some,
Yeah.
if not in February, then in March.
Yeah, and there's just the one policy on the agenda tonight for final reading, right?
BBH Schools Foundation, Tish.
Nothing really new to update other than, we need everybody to come to the fundraising event on February 20th. Go to the website, get your tickets.
Is this a conflict with concerts that are going on at the same time that evening? From what I understand, there's some
We have conferences that night.
concern.
That will be over prior to the start of
But
this event.
music performances.
Hadn't heard that yet.
No, not that.
Okay.
No.
Mrs. Kepke had alerted me to the fact that she saw it only because she double checked, cross-referenced, because on one calendar, the performances are not noted, but they are noted on another, and there seemed to be some confusion. So
yeah.
I'm just asking for
Yeah,
clarification.
so to the best of our knowledge, no. In
Okay.
fact, we were looking at having some of our students possibly perform,
Right, yeah.
right at the beginning of the event. So my understanding is there were not conflicts. But,
Okay, thank you.
and then just to be on the lookout, the auction will be going live here in a few weeks. If you are not able to attend, you can still support the Schools Foundation by bidding on the packages that they will have up for fundraising.
Great. Moving on to safety, Ava and Lisa.
No update.
Nothing right now, no.
Okay, sustainability, Ava and Ellen.
You know what, this isn't anything new, but I probably should be reminding people, just for anybody who's tuning into the meeting, that this, the ability to subscribe to Rust Belt Riders is just, you can do it at any time. So if people are noticing that composting bins outside the board office at the elementary school, the school district, anybody can join. You don't need to have a child in the school. The school district would really welcome any other subscribers because it helps with the cost of that program. So just reminding people that that's an opportunity if they want to start composting.
And there's something that Lisa had forwarded to us regarding a green team at the middle school and composting.
And I don't know too much
From-
about it because that's literally the first time I saw it was in the PSO email today. But I think maybe you know, Mr. Harrison, they're forming a green team of students at the middle school, and I think they're going to work to be recycling, sorting food, and doing
Right.
composting at lunchtime. And they wanted parent volunteers, was why I saw it. So I don't know if you know any more about that or.
I don't at this time.
Okay, so we'll. all
Sounds like a
see-
great idea,
It
though.
does sound great.
Mhm.
So we'll all see how awesome it is later.
Ms. Kramer, I thought the district has done a good job as of late, really pushing the Rust Belt Riders, not pushing information out to notify the community. So,
Have to get an update and see where our subscription numbers are. I know
Yeah.
we were right one away from the next discount, so see if we've made it or not.
Very good. Moving on to PSO, Lisa.
I don't have an update because there was no PSO meeting in January. So I'll just say the next PSO meeting is going to be February 6th, Thursday, February 6th. So I'll have an update then.
Co-curricular, extracurricular, Tish and Lisa.
I don't think we have anything yet. This is a new area of responsibility for Ms. Galick and myself and for our Board of Education. So I would look to hopefully we'll be able to provide an update next month in February.
Very good. Permanent improvement facilities, myself and Ellen. No updates on permanent improvement. Okay, we're going to move on to item 4, superintendent's communications. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff.
Well, first, before we get into the star of the show and introduce Dr. Martin, I just want to take a quick second and recognize our Board of Education. As we know, January is Board of Education Appreciation Month, and I can't stress to you enough how much that Craig and I appreciate the work that you do. A lot of it is behind the scenes, holding us accountable, and also just pushing our district forward. And I just want the community to understand that our school district and community are extremely fortunate to have 5 members that are student focused and student centered. That's not always the case in every school district, and it's very fortunate that we find ourselves in that position. So just, on behalf of the district, I want to thank each and every one of you for the continued effort that you continue to give to our district, both before you were board members, those of you I knew before you were board members, and even the board members who have left us. That work is heroes work. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Dr. Martin, I think we are all here to hear your presentation.
No pressure. Do you want me to drive?
Yeah, you're gonna go. He didn't tell you though that there's no questions for this presentation. Sorry.
Question.
I
think there's a slide.
Dr. Martin, I don't think that's how this works, but.
The questions are on next month's agenda, right? Follow-up questions.
Yeah.
We really just need a clicker, right?
Yes. Maybe find the 21st century and get them quicker.
Yeah, so what you've all been waiting for, curriculum practice. Thank you for allowing me to come up and talk about this. Sometimes every time I'm up here, I'm really excited about the work I have to share. This is another milestone. It has been a labor of love, but I think it's a real celebration tonight. It's not perfect, but it's a real celebration because it's the result of a lot of work through the past year. And you have started to see it firsthand right now. So, contrary to what Mr. Yadwas stated, you will have an opportunity to ask questions at the end.
Can you move the picture up out of the way, please, though? Since you took my mouse. Thank you. It's going to get in the way later. I know it. Okay.
So I have 4 questions I'd like to answer. I think this would help kind of frame the work that we're going to talk about, the curriculum frameworks. So what are curriculum frameworks? Where have we been? Where are we now? Where are we going? And I'll have some questions at the end. So a lot of times you'll hear people throw around curriculum frameworks, curriculum maps kind of interchangeably. They're not, they're different. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to put this table up here to kind of overlay to show that they are different. You're going to see some salient things that kind of come out of the curriculum frameworks, and then some salient things that come out of the curriculum maps that make them very different. So curriculum frameworks really are a set of overarching guidelines and for learning outcomes. Now it's standards heavy and maps are standards heavy, but this is an overarching, that is a key word to keep in mind, an overarching guideline. Curriculum maps, on the other hand, you're going to get into the nitty gritty. Units, lengths of units, standards, learning outcomes, I can statement, vocabulary. In some instances, back in the day when we had courses of study, you'll get into actual lesson plans and examples and activities. Our curriculum maps now really don't have that, but it does get down to the granular success criteria, things like that. Curriculum frameworks they're broad, so another overarching broad outline of standards and what is to be taught. It's in a grand scale. What's to be taught that the end of that year, the end of the first semester, the end of the second semester. Similarly, curriculum maps focus on specifics of how content aligns to standards, how it is sequenced, and how it is assessed. So that's really, really important. What we try to get through to the teachers, and they do a great job, is what are you accepting as mastery of standards? When you get to that in the curriculum map area, what are you accepting as standards of mastery? What do you do when they master it? And what do you do if they don't? So that's in the curriculum map side. This is on the curriculum framework side, more broad, more overarching. They serve as a guide and a structure for curriculum maps. And curriculum maps are the pathway to get there, pathway for planning, teaching, and assessing those standards. And finally, a good way to look at this is curriculum maps are outward facing, general guidelines, overarching. Curriculum maps are more inward facing for us, for the staff, teachers, administrators. So you saw some things, they're more guiding, overarching, and more specific. If you get that out of the difference between curriculum maps and frameworks, we're on the same page. So where have we been? So in the past, we never have had, since I've been here 21 years, we've never had frameworks or course of study or anything like that posted online. So 20 years ago, a lot of districts, that just wasn't what districts did. They didn't post curriculum frameworks online. Well, what did we do? We had hard copy courses of study and in big 3-ring binders in the media center at each of the schools. So if you were a parent or a community member and you wish to review the curriculum and see what the kids were learning, what the standards were, you would go and you could check those out in the media center. And they were big and clunky, and they had everything but the kitchen sink in there. We might still have some around, so if you want to check those out, let me know. It's a blast from the past. In August 2023, you hired a new superintendent, and I think it was our first meeting. He came up, and we were maybe 5 minutes in, and he said, "Hey, where are your curriculum frameworks located?" And I said, I don't know. Well, I know where a bunch of documents are in cyberspace and Google Drives and so forth. And Jeff had asked, and he inquired about if we had these located in one place where someone could go and do a quick analysis and find out, in general, what are we teaching in 6th grade ELA? What are we teaching? What are the kids learning in AP chemistry? So he got me thinking, and we started the ball rolling in the curriculum department. We started with middle school and high school. So in January 2024, we did presentations in the middle school and the high school. We provided templates and guidelines and frameworks for the teachers, explain the process. Teachers function very, very well when you give them parameters, you give them templates, you give them the vision, and you set them up for success. So we did that the best we possibly could. Scott Kinkoff, my instructional coach, made a lot of videos explaining what went into the curriculum frameworks, and the teachers took off. They worked from January 2024 to December 2024, PD days, staff meetings, PLCs, things like that, and they got it done. Our 6th through 12 teachers got it done. There are still some moderate intensive rooms that are working on those. We want to get those right. Those are more in depth, and we have to make sure that we have the right standards in there, the extended standards, and it's ready for that outward view for the public. So where are we now? Let's take a look. Didn't go to the page.
Yes, sir.
I'm kidding.
She got a pop-up.
I know. So we, Gabe Post and Jim kind of did a quick beta mock-up version. You're not going to see all of the frameworks posted, and I'll let you know why in a second, but we wanted to give you a feel of ultimately what is it going to look like should someone in the public want to view our curriculum frameworks. So we got just a little bit of background here, overview. We go down, I've got some samples in here, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and then we've got some high school samples in here as well. Let me take you through what a framework will look like. We're publishing this like a PDF to the web. So you'll notice here, if we make a change on our end, it will update every 5 minutes. Once someone from the public, or you or anyone, opens this framework, you're going to see pretty much the same landing page. It's all going to be branded the same, curriculum framework. The only thing that'll be different here is the content. So 6th grade, English Language Arts, 2024. It'll have the district leadership. It'll have you, Board of Education. And this is important acknowledgements. And why is it important? Because I think as a parent, as someone of interest, who worked on this framework? And I point out this one because 3 out of the 4 teachers listed are general education teachers, and there is an intervention specialist. It's important to know that the intervention specialist had a significant collaborative part in the 6th grade ELA curriculum framework. So I think if you're a parent and my child's in 6th grade, I want to know who worked on that framework. Was it collaborative? Was it inclusive? This, when you have people attached to the acknowledgement section, it spells collaborative and inclusive. This is going to be the same in all frameworks, and these are some of our founding documents that were produced through the strategic plan process. Our mission, our vision, our values, culture, the instructional and curricular philosophy I wrote with lots of feedback. Skip down is really where the rubber hits the road here in Broadview Heights. We anchor all learning in Ohio's learning standards. We utilize data-driven, evidence-based instruction and decision-making. We foster a culture of continuous growth and learning for both students and staff. So some of the things that tried and true things that made Broadview Heights a destination district are included there. That's going to be the same in all curriculum frameworks. Another document that was produced through the strategic plan is here. It was a rebrand of the Portrait of a Graduate into Attributes of a B. Mission, vision, attributes of a B here. Again, the same. And then this is where it'll start to differ. All ELA courses of framework or curriculum frameworks will have the same district overview here. That is heavily borrowed from content at the DO. So that was myself and my department. So me and Scott writing this This is the good stuff here. This is the grade specific level overview. So those 4 people that you saw in the acknowledgement, they took painstaking amounts of time to come up with what they believe 6th grade students should know and be able to do once they matriculate through their grade level. Very, very general academic materials here. We got a listing of enriched materials, assessments, very, very general. Again, you get into the curriculum maps. We're going to get in the weeds with that. The standards, there's going to be a link to the standards on all of the curriculum frameworks. And then this will be heavily standards based. But if I'm a parent and I'm thinking about moving to Ohio because I got transferred and I'm checking out districts in Northeast Ohio, and I can see what my child's going to learn in 6th grade in the first quarter, I think that's pretty powerful. It doesn't take me to the state where I have to kind of ferret through. This has it in one place where I can see, you know, first quarter, second quarter, etc. Let me just kind of give you another sample 7th grade math here. And we won't go through this. Again, it's going to feel the same. Only difference here, 7th grade math. Again, we have 2 general education teachers and 1 intervention specialist. So again, I think that's important to note in the acknowledgement who worked on this and what was their contribution. Same. Again, this math district overview written by myself and Scott, heavily borrowed from the 8 standards of mathematical practice. And then we get into a grade level specific. So the last one, 6th grade ELA, we had nice paragraphs and our math teachers had bullet points. So I was not going to micromanage them. This was their content, their grade level. I wanted them to do their specific grade level overview. Again, same deal, materials, assessments, content standards, and then we get heavily into the standards. Now, folks, I could stay here all night and we could do this for all of them, and I would love it. I will say, I would love it. So I want to give you just a quick little flavor of this one, if it will, it's working yet. So we tried like art, PE, music. We want a K-12 approach. This does say art K-12. Same. However, you'll see here, elementary, and we'll talk a little bit about this shortly, elementary will eventually include their curriculum framework material here. And then we will have K-5, 6-8, and it's coming, and 9-12 art. So that would be nice. I'm a parent transferring in. I can see a whole department K-12 in one document. That is that. Where are we going? Shortly, all 6-12 curriculum frameworks will be posted online. We're going to try to time it up with the new rollout of the website. We can do it now, or it all depends. You saw a sample there, but we're just trying to time that and make it accessible as possible for the community. That's it. Questions, comments, concerns, challenges? I love challenges.
I guess I'm curious. I have one question and one comment. Like, how often do you anticipate updating the frameworks?
Well, if we rebrand, that could get challenging. We're trying to come up with a way in which we can do this and we wouldn't have to go. It is sort of satisfying grunt work sometimes to go in and copy and paste 32 curriculum frameworks. But it's not bad. It's not bad. Scott and I can knock it out. The content, if there are changes, say tweaks or rewrites of state standards, that's going to be the work of the teachers. We will keep them well informed, give them ample runway to get that done. Because that's the work that they can do. We'll just have to make sure that we plan that out. They knocked it out from January to December. So I think they can if there's small tweaks. We have to rely on the people in the trenches because if there's too many changes, it's going to be too much for two guys in a department.
And it's standards driven, basically, of what's happening at the state level.
Yep.
So
Throughout the adoption process will be another time that there'll be a focus on making sure they're updated and correct. Work will be done.
And then, oh my gosh, that looks like a ton of work. So thank you. And thank all the teachers that had to take, that was a big lift.
If your superintendent would not have asked that question, my goodness, it was good. It is. It's a labor of love and it's still going and we're passionate about it. And I just spoke to Colleen and she is presenting this presentation tomorrow at her K2 staff meeting and they're going to get rolling on it. So I think the time is right and I'm sure 3-5 is ready to jump on board too. So shortly, maybe not so shortly, but there is a time in the future we're going to have K-12 curriculum frameworks.
And
It's so systematic.
That K-5, they've had quite the lift this year with ELA and math and everything. So this was not a focus or a priority at the K-5. They're hard at work on very important work. This will come in due time.
Thank you.
Ready for me?
No, never, but.
All right. No, so really, simple question. Where can this be found on the website? Because when you went to it, the page opened. So where would the community be able to access this?
Hit the back space.
Is it in the resources?
Well, you could do that too.
Oh,
You didn't read my mind. You usually do, but not. So it'll be
Under your
teaching them.
department? Okay.
Yeah, just go to, I think, or this might be a beta. It might not be viewable. Yeah,
Okay.
it's not yet
It's not
ready.
forward facing yet.
Yeah, you can see it, but we're gonna collaborate and figure out it.
So next item on the agenda, I'll
That's
talk
on,
about.
yep, you got it.
Yeah, so like, that was my question, and then my comment on that, right, would be for, our community to be somewhat intuitive how to find it. Because this is a comment, all of us on the board have, and Mr. Harrison, have received, and you have received emails, questions about curriculum, questions about what's being taught in our buildings by our staff. I think that this is just fantastic to have forward facing so that the community can see this is what our staff is focused on. Look at the work and the alignment. It's just, I am so impressed with the work that has been done in 1 year to get this together by you, by Mr. Harrison, by your instructional coaches, by our teaching staff. We know how passionate they are about what they do, and this is an excellent product for our community to be able to access and to know what is going on in our classrooms. So I just can't say enough about that. I think it's transparent. I think it's great. My other comment would be, because you mentioned it a couple times tonight, in looking at the staff that did the work and putting it out there, you talked about how it was collaborative and involved the staff that are teaching it, accommodating it, adapting it, all of it in order to meet every learner's needs in the classroom. I do think that, just my take on it, that the general education teachers should be so noted, as well as the intervention specialist, with their titles on the page. It's up to you guys, but I just think that's helpful.
Didn't think of that. That's, yeah.
In case as someone's reading it, if they have questions and they want to know, well, how are you accommodating this? Mrs. Gilly, as an intervention specialist,
Yeah.
how would you help my child with this particular piece of the
I might have had an inward mindset when they went on an outward document, because you're right. Who knows who those 4 teachers are? They don't know. I know. And to me, it's a big deal, but that's a good Good suggestion. Thank you. Thank you.
The only other question I had is, I mean, kudos to everyone involved. It's a lot of work, and obviously there's more work ahead, as well as the ongoing work to keep it refreshed. And I'm just wondering if there was any thought given on the road forward of leveraging AI to help do some of this heavy lift.
Oh, we leverage a lot of AI. So when you're working when collaborative teams are working, some of those grade level overviews and content overviews were assisted with AI. So you might get a lot, and there's like writing a mission statement. You get a lot of input that you throw into AI. AI's outputs are only as good as their inputs. So I really think hopefully there might be some extensions that we can add, and we can, when we do tweaks, we could harness the power of AI to do that. So yeah, good point. Hopefully, because like for example, Tisha's recommendation, that's going to be a massive email. Hey, go in and put your title by it, or Scott and I do it. So it's either two guys doing a bunch of work on a Friday afternoon, or it's getting a way in which we can get staff to. But then the more people you have, when there's a lot of people involved in this, there's human error involved. So yeah, lots to think about. Thanks.
Thanks for everybody involved.
Lots of people involved.
Oh, I just have one question. So like right now you have just on this test page, there's about 8 different PDFs you can click on. How many PDFs will be there when you upload everything, when it's all completed? So if I'm looking at it as a parent, I'm clicking through, like, how many links would there, individual links would there be?
You got to think, we're trying to think of a smart way, and I'll be working with Jeff and Jim and Gabe and Scott. We got to think of a smart way where if a parent goes on there, it's not this laundry list. How can I get quickly? I'm coming to Brecksville Bradley Heights. We're moving in next year. I've got a 6th grader. Where can I find it? I don't want them 9 clicks. I want them like 2 or 3 clicks. So I've got to think about that. I don't have an answer right now. I have to think about a way in which we can post this so it's very user-friendly and accessible quickly and efficiently. Because there's nothing more frustrating than, where is it? Then you get, forget this. So we have to think about that.
That's one of the reasons we're waiting for the rollout of the new website, because some of the navigation tools in the new website are much better than our current site. So instead of doing all that work he just explained on getting them organized, we didn't want to do it and then first couple weeks of March have to redo it. So we are close to rolling out the new website. There's a lot of work. Gabe Host, who works for Jim Crooks and JC Power, is just turning out a ton of work for us on the website. So Gabe and I are kind of leading that, and we hope there's an aggressive timeline of February 21st. I'll take the more conservative timeline of before spring break. So that's what we're looking at.
Well, it's still before March, so we have February / close.
I'm just curious also if we looked at any alternative platforms, like Board Docs does a lot. And when we switch to Board Docs, it's like we have our policy, we have our board, right? Because these frameworks are not like unique to our school district, right? And so, if you had a platform that offered that, especially a lot of the sections, whether it's like the Board of Education or whatever, it's like they have that repeated in every document versus here's where the Board of Education gets put in, and then it gets feathered into the generated document of here's the mission statement and all that other stuff. And so I don't know if we've looked at that or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's some platforms out there that, as a service that let you host and manage this with less effort.
Yeah, the hope is I want these to be aesthetically pleasing, but then very efficient and accessible to all. We went with free, so Google Drive, and it's just a lot of man hours.
Yeah.
But I think in the future, if we can get something, because some of these, I've checked a couple out. Yeah, they're paying or doing something because it's pretty pristine and they're you saw large gaps. Once it's published, as
I
a-
mean, and I know Board Docs they have additional feature sets that that we're not leveraging, we're not paying for it, but because I know Board Docs does, you can use Board Docs to do project management and some other things in it, kind of have it host more of your content. I don't know that it would be a fit for this curriculum frameworks, but
Power
if not
School
Board
has a
Docs-
curriculum suite, so there's some talk, and I think you sent me some information about that last year. So, thanks, could happen. Ava?
I think it's a great
Oh.
job. From a principal standpoint,
Oh, yeah.
I'm picturing the teachers, how they gonna take it? And were they all in and accepting?
Once the teachers knew the vision and knew what they were supposed to do, they were fine. It's just getting there because it's overwhelming. We've never done this. We've never posted all of this. So I think they just found it doable and manageable once they knew this is what the end product should look like.
And they've been through the curriculum mapping, which was arduous.
So that's what's interesting. Yeah, we did a little bit backwards. You had the curriculum map. Now you got to kind of fill in the
Right.
general one.
Exactly.
Was interesting.
Thank you.
So good. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. I appreciate it. And thank you and Scott for your leadership in this. We're in a different time with public education. And the whole premise for this was to get ahead of the curve and make sure that before the state tells us we're forced to do something like this, we're going to go ahead and do it our way and make sure that it's out there. Plus, as a superintendent or a curriculum director, board of education member, it's just timeless. I always just wait for the question of, well, what are you teaching my kid in 7th grade health or American history or AP economics? So here we can point people that are interested in that to see what we're doing. It's accountability as well, because what we're doing in the classroom should be displayed in those frameworks and vice versa. So again, I'm proud of the staff. They took it and ran with it, but it's just further verification and of the great work that they're doing in the classroom. So I appreciate that. I've mentioned a couple times about the new website. The original launch date for the new website and app was spring break or right around spring break. Final Site, who's our partner that we're working with, and as I said, Gabe Host from JC Power. When we look at our implementation timeline, they were telling me, right around February 21st, but we don't want to rush it. We want to make sure it's set. If you read the community email that I put out today, I announced to the community at the very bottom, hey, we're in the process of building and rebranding our new website. If you have ideas or would like to share what you want in the website, like what are the top 3 things you go to our website for? I may think I know what those are. So I asked for a little bit of feedback in the email. We'll see if I get any feedback. I met with PSO presidents last month, and I asked them the same question. And they gave me a lot of great information to consider as we're designing and setting up the navigation of the website. Lastly, I sent out an email on Monday about the Power School data breach. Power School obviously is our SIS, our student information system, as well as runs the financial side of our school district. They did have a data breach, but fortunately, BBHCSD was not affected by that. And we have great partners at Connect, which is our ITC, who help provide a lot of these services, but also provide a level of security and service, who have also looked into all of the logs to make sure there was no activity in our accounts. And at this point in time, we have not had any effect. That cannot be said for other school districts across the country, but we are sitting in a good position. Unfortunately, in today's day and age, things like this can happen. And when they do, it's important that we have great partners that are going to help us get through it. Connect is one of those, and Power School as well has done their due diligence. Craig, anything you need to share on your financial side of that?
No, it was just affecting the SIS, so it did not affect ERP anyways, because they are 2 separate systems, so it did not do that. But just to echo what Jeff said on the ERP side, I think it's not all schools do it the same way in Ohio, but I think Ohio does in general have better safeguards than perhaps other states. You have the option to host some of these things directly in the cloud, kind of specific to your district. And then you have the option to host them through an ITC, which is what we use for SIS. And then on Power School ERP solution side, we hosted at the Management Council in Columbus. And so those, because they are data centers, they've got more security in addition to that. And so Power School being a national company, international company, really, they did not block all of the exterior outside attacks coming in from outside of the country, and that's where this came from. So Connect does that naturally. So it doesn't allow any of that stuff. And so does the management council. So it's sometimes good to have those extra protections in place that we sometimes don't really talk about enough. Sometimes is in terms of like those partners that we have to help us in situations like this. There are states that don't even have ITCs. And so it's just on the school district or Power School hosted directly. So those schools are affected, and it's pretty big for some of those. There's a lot of social security numbers out there, but not for us.
Okay, that's it. That's it. Okay, we're going to move on to item 5, Treasurer's Communications. Turn it over to Craig.
So you will notice that we do have some changes here. So the items in terms of the agenda is that the items that are required or should be approved by the board each month are the check register, everyone's favorite topic, I know, and the bank reconciliation, because those are the two things that should be board approved. So we've moved those outside because they're not really required. These are not really required to be approved. So I'm going to share my CFO reports earlier in the meeting. I will not talk about these because these are other reports, but these will be listed. They've been a part of this as well, but we don't talk about them, but they will still be here, which is our cash position report at the end of each month and our annual spending plan. So we will talk about how we did in December here really quick. Now that we have 6 months of our fiscal year completed, so we can see, whoopsies, there we go, that we brought in about $86,000 in revenues from the state, $27,000 additional in restricted aid, $236,000. Again, the majority of that is interest income for $650,000 in total revenue. On the expense side, we did spend $4.2 million, which is almost $7 million in salaries, $1 million in benefits, $440,000 in purchase services, and $26,000 in supplies for that month. So these have all been updated with some projections that we have coming forward. So you can see our projected totals here on the left and then the forecast on the right. So we're still trending to be negative, although a little less negative at the moment, but we'll see how that kind of plays out over the next. We'll get the actual numbers for January, which they should be fairly close because January is you see this personnel line is very large at $4.7 million. And the reason for that is that it is a 3-pay month in addition to spending $536,000, I think, or $535,000 in severance from that large group that retired at the end of last school year. So that's reflected here. We'll get the actual numbers, and that's a pretty big line item, but I'm hoping it should be pretty close. So that's where we are there. And then we will come over here to look at our month to date comparison as we have the revenue comparison. That actually should say December. Sorry, I'll fix that. It is December from December. So we see we did bring in more revenue this year as compared to last year. All revenue categories were higher than the same month last year. December revenues did increase 101,000 total over the previous year. When we look at the expenditure comparison, salaries were higher while the benefits were just a smidge lower than last year during the same period, and purchase services were increased. A lot of times, again, the purchase services and supplies are timing issues. It wasn't significant. As you can see, we were pretty spot on, not too much with what was different from this year versus last year. That's just a recap of what you see on the front. And then here is your fiscal year to date. So July to current, green and blue are the revenue side of things, which is pretty consistent where we were this year versus last year. And then on the expenditure side, we are a little higher. Again, we've kind of talked about those each month with where we are. The other thing that's coming is that we did just get our first tax advance for 2025, which came yesterday. Actually, no, it hit the bank today. It is not great news for us necessarily. It's the lowest tax advance that we have ever received in January. Part of that from the county level is that there was a delay in the certification from the Department of Taxation. So tax bills, if you've not gotten them yet, it's probably why. So they're supposed to be mailing the tax bills this week. So most people have not even gotten their tax bills to pay them. Therefore, there's no money available to send to the schools and the other local municipalities. So normally we get about $2.5 to $3 million in January, which kind of tides us over until we get the bulk of it in February and March. And they sent us $1 million today. So you will see our bank balances are, this is the dry spell that happens in schools. So we have money in investments, but to not pull from investments, we're going to be cutting it close in terms of money that we have in liquid cash available. If we need to do something, we can do that, but it's gonna be a little tighter this year until we get our February payment because of the situation with the delay from the certification from the property values at the Department of Taxation. Any questions for me?
I do. So, last week, the new Speaker of the House in Ohio, Matt Huffman, made some comments that he didn't think the next phase of the Fair School Funding Plan was sustainable and may not happen. And from the perspective of Brecksville Broadview Heights, you know, do you have at this point in time, and I realize it's going to be an estimate, like how is that going to affect this school district if that next phase doesn't happen?
Yeah, so right before the forecast was filed, I mentioned that we, for the first time, probably, and I would assume more than a decade, I haven't looked that up necessarily, but we came off of the guarantee and we went onto the formula, which I think in itself, to some extent, does speak to the power of the formula, because you went from a formula where 85% of schools were not on the formula, and now you've moved to a formula that schools are finally getting on. In a district like us, I didn't even know if it was possible, but we did. We made it on the formula, which did have we're still at the bottom end of that formula because we just made it onto the formula. So when we finalized the forecast, it did actually help us on the revenue side because we planned, because there was evidence before that they would continue to fund it, and they still might. We don't know, because I don't know. Some of that I think is political posturing from the legislative body, but it will affect us if they decide not to phase it in, because we planned for them to phase it in the last part of this. And the former speaker, Stevens, actually spoke in support of it to say that this was always supposed to be phased in over the course of 3 bienniums or 6 years. So it'll be interesting to see what happened. It will have some sort of effect on us. I don't know exactly offhand or even really to make an estimate today of what that would be, but it will have some revenue effect on us because by fully funding it and updating the inputs are very important to also get updated because they moved it to fiscal 22. So we're still already 2 years behind on what they're calculating for those inputs. So you're using teacher salaries, superintendent salaries, treasurer salaries, all of those salaries and inputs from 22 in your current formula. So it's already 2 years behind. And so even if it's funded and they keep the inputs the same, it does affect how much we would get. Now they've asked the question about too, is how has the local property tax, the valuation affected it? Because part of the formula is your local capacity, which my comment back to that is that the suburban districts have always done relatively well. And so yes, they were high, but we also saw in Brecksville was 20% overall, 22% residential. And then in Broadview Heights, it was 27% in residential, but overall 24% of property increase. So yes, it's still higher than usual, but it wasn't 40-some% or 30%, 32, I think 31 or 32% for the average of Cuyahoga County. So that will also have to get factored in as well as they move us to the formula and those inputs, if they would update all of the different pieces to it. So I guess stay tuned. It's going to be a very interesting ride as we figure out what the State House is going to do in the formula. I think it'll be a telltale sign depending what the governor suggests, because that's where it all starts, is what is his proposal, whether he puts it in or he doesn't. And then we'll see what the House does.
Well, and just to clarify, when you're saying it's going to have an effect on our district, if it doesn't get phased in, you mean it'll have a negative effect?
Correct. Yeah, we would lose money.
And I also think that if Huffman says that it's unsustainable, he's prepping us. Because I think that, I mean, they've already gotten $1 billion out of it for the voucher system. So that's a lot of money out of that pot.
And some of the representatives I've spoken to, I don't necessarily know if his opinion is widespread amongst the party. So
in terms of it being unsustainable, you mean?
The Fair School Funding Plan being funded. Yeah. So, and him saying it's unsustainable. So there's more to the story.
Money around, but in terms of what is there right now, it's unsustainable.
We'll see.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay, are you
Good.
you good? Ready to move on? All right, thanks. Moving on to item 6, community communications. Item A, hearing of the public. Is there anyone here who wishes to be heard? Nope.
We have none.
There's no one, so we will dispense with that and move on to item 7, consent agenda. Item A, resolve to approve certified personnel recommendations. Item B, resolve to approve classified personnel recommendations. Item C, resolve to approve supplemental personnel recommendations. Item D, resolve to approve the Beekeepers Employee Handbook and Beekeepers Parent Handbook as attached. Item E, resolve to approve the ESC Primary Service Agreement for the 2025, 2026, and 2026, 2027 school years as attached. Item F, resolve to approve the check register and bank reconciliation as attached. Item G, resolve to accept donations as presented. Item H, resolve to approve the minutes from the December 18th, 2024 regular board meeting and the January 8th, 2025 organizational board meeting as attached. Item I, resolve to approve items A through H. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, you guys want to walk us through this?
Yeah, so I got the first half of the consent agenda before I pass the baton to my partner here. So certified recommendations, we have those open. I want to point out, we do have 2 retirements on the certified side. So Joan Moore and Stacy Profit, both from the elementary building. Joan in particular has 36 years service in Briceville Broadview Heights, and Stacy 31. So 2 longtime educators who have had a strong influence upon our students for years. We thank them for the many years of service. With the change in the retirement system, I think it made it retirement a little sooner for some. So we thank them for their service, and Mr. Wyckoff will be busy hiring this spring. On the classified side, I have quite a few recommendations at the educational assistant substitute health aide, just to continue to fill the gaps that we have. Handful of resignations and 1 unpaid leave. And just a few individuals on the supplemental list to round out the winter. Many of these we were waiting on different certifications that come from the state. And as you can see, a good portion of them are volunteers. So after that, down to the Beekeepers Handbook, Lorna Daniels does an outstanding job of running beekeepers. When I met with her the other day, I said, by no means do I judge the way that anybody does their job by the number of calls or emails or whatever, but beekeepers just runs. And I very seldom hear anything about beekeepers except for praise. And they're just kind of like the workers behind the scenes that take care of our kids, when on days that we don't have school and during the summers, they take good care of our kids. So just a shout out to the staff for the beekeepers. This is a yearly kind of update to the handbook that we needed to make happen. The next item is our ESC Primary Service Agreement, obviously Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio. They're our partners. They provide a ton of resources and efficiencies for us. And this is just a 2-year agreement that we will be in with the ESC. And with that, move right on to the bank.
Yes. Page 1. So you see that there's the check register and bank reconciliation attached for here. There are donations that are as presented here. We do have some stage crew donations that were accepted. I think all of them are stage crew, yeah. Oh, and girls basketball at the very bottom. So we thank them for their generous donations. And then we do have our 2 minutes from the last couple of meetings that we've had. And that is it, unless there are questions.
Any questions or comments?
I just had a question. Mr. Harrison, could you just give an example of a service that the ESC provides to the district? When you read the scope of what we would use them for, is there anything you can think of off the top of your head that they do?
Actually, since I have friends here, I'm going to ask Dr. Martin to talk a little bit about some of the curriculum and assistance that they provide or resources.
That I was sending the dog is on my foot.
ESC and services that they support us with. Just any service that you or your department use from the ESC.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
High school has contracted lots of services with curriculum maps, teacher clarity, and online professional development they've used for the last 2 or 3 years. The writing revolution, I don't know if you've heard of the writing revolution. So three, the Topes, Scott, are getting trained to be facilitators. So
I'll cut you off there.
Development.
And we have personnel that we use from the ESC. So Mr. Wyckoff.
Personnel that we contract through that they do hire for us. We have professional development that we do for our teams, teachers, admin need to go to probably more PD through the ESC than our teachers do. Utilize their services like during negotiations. They offered up rooms that we could use their facilities when need be. So they do quite a lot for us.
Okay.
Do have good partnership with.
They also have like a PLC for administrators at
Yeah, and
various
they-
levels, which is very
Yeah,
valuable.
I'm at the ESC a couple times a month for those items, but they also have expanded that. They have PLCs for EL teachers. They have PLCs for different curriculum individuals and coaches. So we're very fortunate to be so close to them. And they are one of, if not the largest ESCs in the state. So the vast offering of things that they have. Now, we are a larger district. Typically, the smaller your district is, the more you rely on the ESC. So we're a little bit larger, so we don't have to rely on some of the offerings that they have, but they are always there if we need them, which is nice.
They're more targeted now. So they're doing a really good
Mhm.
job. At one point, it just fell.
If you ever head up to their building that they have up in Independence on any given day, it's jammed.
It's packed.
Like when we were able to get the space for negotiations, we were very lucky to be able to do that. But there's times that our superintendent PLC, he get moved off site because the rooms are being used for PD, for teachers or other administrators. So yeah, we're positioned very nicely with them.
Can I ask Ms. Spangler, do we use them for special education or anything?
Behavior and health wellness coaches, we do have a contract for them, but we use some of the training. So
Okay.
right now, we're using we're going through like a internal monitoring process, so
Mhm.
we're currently active members in their LRE establishment, which they have a series in. Right now,
Yeah.
we're in the 5-day series.
Okay.
Preschool, they have a PLC that we're figuring out with. Austin has a PLC. I love to look down to Brian because we are all connected.
Yeah.
And we offer tremendous free services when it comes to professional development. And honestly, when we talk about like the operation guide, they have a lot of close hands, especially when we get to safety points. And like, how do you interpret it? They're great at helping us. I didn't do that guideline before we have to reach out to people.
ESD was instrumental in helping us get the tutors. As their funds.
Legal updates,
For here, we are.
a lot of legal updates.
It's a great question. And like when you ask, it's like, oh, like what don't they help us with at the same time?
Well, and when you look at what we financially pay for all of that service, it's very cost effective,
Yes.
you know.
And that's the whole model, right? Yep. The
for-
Shared
for
services.
the support that's provided to the district. It is a really important contract.
Yes, it is.
Other comments or questions on the consent agenda? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelick,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Ms. Amara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item 8, superintendent's recommendations. I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Awesome. We have a trip to Greece on here.
I'm sorry. I've got it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, thought I was jumping.
Item A, resolve to approve the summer of 2026 high school trip proposal as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Now,
Well in advance. So it's the summer of 26, but we want to get approval on the book so they can start advertising the trip to Greece. Yet another example of teachers who give their time for special experiences like this for our students. So all the information's there, the itinerary, the costs, and all of
any comments or questions?
I want to go.
Yeah.
I know, I'm like, I do have a question because I actually obviously have a future graduate of 2026 and a house full of future graduates of 2026 often. And you have to be an active student. You can't be a graduated
That's a great
student
question.
to attend.
That's a great question. I don't know off the top of my head the correct answer to that.
Yeah.
I would tell you that if the company allows it, I think we'd consider it, but I'm not the one chaperoning the trip.
Right.
So we will, we'll take a look into that.
I said I would ask.
Yeah, we can definitely double check and I'll follow back up with you.
Maybe they'd be a chaperone.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, well, right. I mean, I don't know if we want a bunch of 18-year-olds
What could go wrong with that?
right?
Other comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item 8C. Resolve to adopt new board policy as attached, final reading. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
So this is policy 2265 that we are just scooting in before the deadline of having to pass this policy according to wonderful new legislation. It does not necessarily change what we do on a daily basis, but it just is something that the legislators felt every school district needed to have. I'll leave it at that.
Any comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item 9, treasurer's recommendations. Item A, resolves to approve the resolution as indicated below, which utilizes the competitive bid process through the Ohio Schools Council. Do I have to read this? May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
So this is the purchase of our 2 buses. These should come next year, but we're trying to get in line. They are producing these faster. This is a 72 passenger, basically a regular school bus, and a 54 passenger special educate one that is equipped with a wheelchair lift and used for special education. And they are, yes, both the same price as the quote indicates. So just because it holds less people, it is actually, because of the equipment for the special education, it is still just as expensive. These are $144,000 a piece.
Do we get free shipping with those or?
We do, yeah. They deliver them, they drop them right off.
They do it very quickly, if you remember from the comments. Yeah. The last time we got our new school buses, we had a person on the road call the school district to complain how recklessly our drivers were driving and how fast. We hadn't even received delivery of them. They were en route to us.
And I was thinking maybe we're buying 2 because like free shipping is at 150,000.
Right.
Right. Well, and so we just throw another.
Another bus.
You get it.
Free shipping.
You got to get the free shipping.
Yeah.
Like Amazon for buses.
There you go.
Right.
Except you don't get them in 2 days.
Yeah.
It takes 6 months.
And then you find them outside on your porch.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
I mean, I noticed we did have a coupon. There's 4,000 off, right? So they give us some discount.
Well, that's
or
if we buy it before February.
Right.
So those are the prices.
And I know we've talked about this in other meetings, but like, how is like the market for school buses? Are the prices continuing to just go up and up and up, or are they sort of leveling off?
Right now, it's been about what, 2,000 a year, I think, is what it's been kind of going up per model year, which, I mean, I guess for how big it is, it's not terrible, but it's continuing to rise. I don't know if it will level off because it was leveled off for a while, but I don't know now that they're making them faster and they've caught up on production, whether it will do that, because we did get a call from our vendor that was like, hey, I've got one on the lot and it's a little cheaper, but it's not what we normally buy anyways. And there's some of them are making some extras so that they have them available as well. So it might start to level off. I don't know, but it has not so far.
Any other comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski.
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item 10, closing items. Item A, announcements. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education is scheduled for February 12th at 6 p.m. Moving on to item B, resolve to adjourn the meeting. May I have a motion.
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yeah.
Mrs. Kramer.
Yeah.
Ms. Kwiatkowski.
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, the meeting is now adjourned. Stay safe and warm, everyone.